next poem from English literature book Beehive, poem named Wind. The wonderful poem is written by Subramanya Bharati, Chinnaswamy Subramanya Bharati. The poem was written first in Tamil language and it is translated by A.K. Ramanujan. Now let me introduce you with the central idea or the theme of the wonderful poem. As you all know that the wind is a natural phenomena, and in this wonderful poem the poet talks to the wind. The power of wind has been described and the poet says that the wind is destructive too. Sometimes it is very serene, calm and refreshing, but the same wind become violent and destructive too. He has linked the destructive power of the wind to the adversities of life. Whatever the difficulties and obstacles comes on the way, and says that the weak people break down but the stronger people emerge out of adversities stronger. So it is necessary that we should make these destructive forces our friends with our strong determination and strength. We should be tough and strong mentally, physically and emotionally. Let's know more about the poet. Chinnaswamy Subramanya Bharati. He was a Tamil writer, poet, journalist and an Indian independence activist. He was also a social reformer and polyglot, popularly known as Mahakavi Bharati. He was a pioneer of modern Tamil poetry and is considered one of the greatest Tamil literary figure of all time. He was born on 11 December 1882 at Ettiyapuram and died on 12 September 1921 at Chennai. Let's come, we'll recite the poem together and enjoy it. Wind comes softly, don't break the shutters of the windows, don't scatter the papers, don't throw down the books on the shelf. There, look what you did. You threw them all down. You tore the pages of the books. You brought rain again. You are very clever at poking fun at weaklings. Frail, crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, crumbling hearts. The wind god winnows and crushes them all. He won't do what you tell him. So, come, let's build strong homes. Let's join the doors firmly. Practice to form the body. Make the heart steadfast. Do this and the wind will be friends with us. The wind blows out weak fires. He makes strong fires roar and flourish. His friendship is good. We praise him every day. Let's discuss first few lines of the poem. Wind comes softly. Don't break the shutters of the windows. Don't scatter the papers. Don't throw down the books on the shelf. In these lines, the poet directly talks to the wind. In fact, he makes an entreaty to the wind and asks the wind to come softly, to come calmly, to come in serene way, just to refresh us for the betterment of human beings. And also he asked in the next line that the wind not to break down the shutters of the window. The shutters of the window are the only thing that separates men from the stormy environment outside. So, in a way, the poet is asking the wind for protection. He also asked the wind not to scatter the papers in his room or to throw down the books from his bookshelf. It is pertinent for him to care about papers and books and for them to be the first things in his room, that he doesn't want to be disorganized because he is a writer, he is a poet. So perhaps some of these papers also contain some important drafts of his wonderful masterpiece poems, like this one hence they are very important to him and he cannot afford to lose them. So what he is asking? He is asking wind in the first line to come softly, calmly, refreshingly, so that wind can be very refreshing for all human beings. But then in the second line he asks that don't come and shutter my windows, don't scatter the papers, don't put all my books down, so that it will not be good for him and also not for other humans. In next 5th to 7th line, dear, look what you did. You threw them all down. You tore the pages of the books and you brought rain again. So in this line, the poet continues speaking to the wind. However, the tone of the poet has changed. He now uses to address the wind has changed from the tone he had been using in first 4 lines. Here he takes on an accusatory tone. He gestured towards the mess in his room and tells the wind that it is he who is responsible for it. He shows the wind his anger. He shows the wind how he has thrown all the books down from the bookshelf with his force and torn the pages out of those books as well. However, the poet does not resist his vision only to the inside of the room, but he casting his gaze outside. He also accuses the wind of having brought rainfall with him while approaching the poet's house. Thus, in first 4 lines, he was requesting the wind to come softly, but here the poet's tone has been changed. He is quite upset, he is quite angry, and he is showing his anger and he is quite annoyed with the wind. Why? Because wind has scattered the windows, wind has torn the pages of the books. The books were very, very dear to poet. Now look at the line number 8. You are very clever at poking fun at weaklings. Now again in these lines the poet keeps speaking to wind, but again he has changed his tone. Now he has still accustoming, but now he became little sober to some extent. The poet tells the wind that he makes mischief whenever he comes face to face with anyone who is too meek and mild to protest against his actions. The wind can tear down the doors. Means he is telling to wind that you are very clever, you make fun of all the weaklings. Weaklings means here physically and mentally or emotionally weaker persons, or we can say frails, or we can say weak ones. So those who are weak, those who are not able to firm themselves in front of the power of the wind, wind makes fun of all. Frail crumbling houses, crumbling doors, crumbling rafters, crumbling wood, crumbling bodies, crumbling lives, and crumbling hearts. Poet says that the wind can tear down the doors, the rafters, or the entire wooden houses altogether. This is the wind's overt action, leaving people without a roof over their heads or walls to keep them sheltered from the harsh world outside. However, the wind also has a convert action. To understand what the poet is talking about at this point, you can think back to how many Indian vernacular languages have a phrase about the wind blowing over someone's life and leaving a trail of disasters behind. What such an idiom implies is that the troubles we face in life come as suddenly as the wind and also leave in the same sudden way. Hinting of this, the poet says that the wind can tear down weak bodies, fragile bodies, the weaker ones, the weaker hearts, the people, those who are physically, mentally and emotionally weak. Where they become weak? When any obstacle or difficulty comes. That is, difficulties in life can lead to a loss of hope as well as a loss of life. Whether such things will happen or not, it is all depends on your will or either the will of God, says the poet. So here poet says that anything which is weaker one will not stay in front of the power of wind, because the wind comes violently and sometimes destructive, and destructive winds take away everything along with it, whatever is weak. So whatever is firm, wind cannot do any harm to them, but the weaker ones always suffer. We'll continue the poem in the next video. Thank you.